Avatar The Way of the Water is officially out. And guys, I gotta tell you, Avatar is actually a very good movie, in my opinion. Now, I know there are some people out there that are gonna disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. But I actually thoroughly enjoyed Avatar Way of the Water. I thought it was a very good movie overall. I thought James Cameron knocked it out in all of the scenarios that I thought he was gonna knock it out in. He knocked it out. He threw in a couple of surprises here and there, which I appreciated. Like, for example, I thought the movie was going to be extremely woke, and while there is definitely some messaging in here, it's not overbearing to the point where you feel like you're getting your skull smashed in by identity politics. But it did have a very strong family unit that a lot of people are enjoying in the actual movie. Very, very strong male father figures, and also women as well, being very feminine and motherly. It just overall, it was a great movie, and I definitely think it's a step in the right direction. But one of the things I notice about this movie is that I find it extremely ironic that the person who directed this movie, as you guys are aware, James Cameron, his social identity politics that he pushes online is nowhere near close to what he actually showcases in his movies. That's the funniest thing to me. The guy preaches wokeness nonstop online, and yet when you actually look at his movies, it's anything but that. So we're going to get into the article, guys. This one is from Bounding Into Comics. The link is in the description box below. It says James Cameron says pregnant women being shown as hunters and warriors in Avatar: The Way of the Water is a step forward for female empowerment. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. The guy is a 100% a left-wing identity politics shill, and yet in his movies, he doesn't necessarily do that at all. It's almost as if they don't believe a single word that they're saying, which I am in that boat. I don't believe that they believe a single word that they're actually saying at all. But it says, according to James Cameron, his decision to have pregnant female Na'vi actively serve as both warriors and hunters in Avatar: The Way of the Water was motivated by his desire to go all the way down the rabbit hole of female empowerment. But the thing is, in the movie, when you see the pregnant females actually doing something, sort of like battling, it's not overbearing. Like, it doesn't feel as if it's totally unbelievable. Like, you're supposed to think that there's a war going on, right? You're supposed to think that the humans are trying to take over Pandora and essentially colonize it and become the next Earth. So while this is all happening, do you think the women are just going to stand by and do absolutely nothing because they happen to be pregnant? It kind of is not really believable. So when they go out and they actually take part in the fight, it makes it believable. Like, you really think that this is actually going to go down if something like this were to happen. So that's why I don't necessarily consider this to be shilling for identity politics. And it just happens to be more believable. That's all I'm saying. Like, I hope you guys understand where I'm trying to come with that. But it says Cameron offered this insight into his creative process during a recent discussion held between himself and director Robert Rodriguez as part of Variety's Directors on Directors interview series. At one point during their talk, after recalling how during his viewing of the Avatar sequel, he both was really taken by the fact that Neytiri hunts while she's pregnant and had noticed that one of the characters goes into battle pregnant. Rodriguez asked Cameron, why was that important? Now, obviously, he's going to upsell it when he does his interviews. This is what makes it so frustrating to me, because when he does his interviews, he's 100% a left-wing politics shill. This is just, it just is what it is. Like, he comes out, he talks about toxic masculinity, he talks about climate change, he talks about all the typical talking points that you would expect from somebody that's actually in Hollywood doing this, and he's in the scene. So it's nothing different than what everybody else is saying. That's a fact. But for some reason, when he makes his movies, it's almost nowhere to be found. You have to look really hard in order to find it. Obviously, like I said, you can say the whole pregnant women thing is going a little bit too far, but I think during a war, it would make sense that it's all hands on deck, especially if the war is getting pretty ugly, which you're supposed to believe that it is. So that's why I buy that story. It says everybody's always talking about female empowerment, Cameron explained to his former Alita Battle Angel collaborator, but what is such a big part of the woman's life that we as men don't experience? He continued, and I thought, well, if you're really going to go all the way down the rabbit hole of female empowerment, let's have a female warrior who's 6 months pregnant in battle. It doesn't happen in our society. Probably hasn't happened for hundreds of years, Cameron argued, but I guarantee you back in the day, women had to fight for survival and protect their children, and it didn't matter if they were pregnant. And pregnant women are more capable of being a lot more athletic than we, as a culture, acknowledge. Listen, I get I get the idea, okay? I get the idea, James Cameron. It's all good, but it just really seems very insincere coming from James Cameron, because a lot of the stuff that he's been talking about lately just feels overly insincere. Like, it just doesn't seem like he's actually speaking from a place that he believes what he's saying. It's speaking from a place that he feel like he has to say what he's saying. That's the problem. I feel like he's in that boat. It's not really the other way around. And honestly, I just don't buy it. I don't know how you guys feel, but when James Cameron is talking, I don't buy what he's saying. And it's unfortunate because the fucking movie is fantastic. I'm telling you, I really enjoy it. Is it a 10 out of 10? Fuck no, it's not a 10 out of 10. But I would probably give it somewhere in the 8 range, honestly. I really, really would. Maybe even creeping up to an 8.5 because his movies are always so far ahead in terms of technical standpoint and in terms of CGI presentation. I'm very big on presentation. I love a strong presentation, and James Cameron definitely brings out that strong presentation. However, when it comes to Avatar: Way of the Water, it's definitely a movie that overstays its welcome. In my opinion, and I said this on Saturday Night Hypnosis, the movie is definitely, I would say, probably should have been an hour shorter, honestly, because there's an hour of that movie that's dedicated to being a tech demo. Everything else is the actual story that plays out. So, in my opinion, I really think that that's probably what's hindering the movie the most. But other than that, I'm a huge fan of the movie. I think it's actually very good. So it says, I thought, let's take the real boundaries off. He concluded, to me, it was the last bastion that you don't see. Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel, all these other amazing women come up, but they're not moms and they're not pregnant while they're fighting evil. That's because it's not the story. Like, it doesn't have to be the story. If you want to make a pregnant woman fight and make that part of your story, go ahead. It's fine. But because other people didn't make that their story, why is that like a thing? Why do you have to see Wonder Woman pregnant fighting? Like, who honestly wants to see that at the end of the day? It says, interestingly, in the years Cameron has spent editing his return to Pandora, it seems Hollywood has actually caught up to Cameron's thinking regarding pregnant women in combat being the pinnacle of female empowerment. More and more productions are beginning to feature more and more women putting themselves into ever precarious situations despite the obvious risks posed to them and their unborn child. Alongside Avatar: The Way of the Water, at the forefront of this charge is Sony Animations Across the Spider-Verse, which upon its theatrical debut in June 2023 will see a 5 months pregnant version of Jessica Drew fighting on the front lines of the series' next multiversal conflict. Avatar: The Way of the Water is now playing in theaters. Listen, guys, at the end of the day, they're going to push what they want to push, right? James Cameron, we all know what he thinks like. We all know what's in his mind. We all know his ideology. We all know his politics. Why? Because he constantly talks about it, especially recently. But I think it's because he knows that if he talks about this stuff, he's going to get his name in the headlines. And if he gets his name in the headlines, then ultimately he's going to get Avatar in the headlines as well. I think this movie's going to do about $1.5 billion, in my opinion. That's my prediction. I could be wrong, but you guys can let me know what your prediction of the actual final box office is going to be for Avatar: Way of the Water. Let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this story, and if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought of today's story, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.